Hi, today I'm going to be talking about VR headsets for seniors, and this is based on some of my own personal experiences. Just to get started, I wanted to say that some people may have a medical condition that would prohibit them from using a VR headset, virtual reality headset. And if you have any doubt about that, consult your doctor. You never force anyone to try on a VR headset that does not feel comfortable using one, okay? So I just want to put that out front because some people will not be able to use these things. So as I said, I want to talk about some of my own personal experiences with the VR headset. Since I'm in my mid-60s, I thought it would also be a good time to walk through some of the expectations and watch outs for people that we aren't in our teens anymore or 20s, and we just need to be careful about some of the ways we interact with virtual reality. So I've been playing with VR headsets off and on for about the past few years. And about 2 years ago, my son's bought a Samsung unit. I'll show you this one. Okay. And that needed to be connected to a PC, so it's got a cable to it, all right. And I played with that a little bit, and it was fun, but you had to be connected to a PC. And some of the other ones, more modern ones, you don't have to do that. So we'll talk about that in a bit here. But it was a fun thing to play with. So since then, I've had a chance to play with some that were standalone, the Oculus style, where you don't have to plug it in. These kind of are pretty easy to use. You just put them on, and the computer's inside of there, and the screens are inside. Everything is self-contained, and you don't have to be tethered all the time to a computer. You may have to at some point, but not all the time. So speaking of which, about 6 months ago, I bought this Meta Oculus Quest. I bought the Oculus Quest, okay, for my. I've been using it off and on since. So there's been some challenges, and that's some of the things I wanted to talk about using these things. Now, as you notice, when you get online and look at reviews of these things, it's usually very young people, and they're talking about all the wonderful games you can play and everything, and that's cool. That's neat. I'm glad it's out there because it is a fun thing to use. So that we're older, like I said, I'm 65. I wanted to share my experiences with other seniors. You know, that you may not be as familiar with this new technology and wanted a more realistic approach or more realistic information on what to expect, for people our age. Now, one thing I wanted to point out early on was that you don't have to stand up all the time to use the headsets. There's a lot of activities you can do and experiences you can do that are very enjoyable while you're sitting. So that might think that's a turnoff, but sitting down works very well. So this video is not about any recommendations for therapeutic VR use for the elderly or a recommendation for any particular VR headset. I just want to give you my own personal experiences. So why would you want to try a VR headset? So to start off, it's fun. It's something that's really a fun activity, keeps you moving. There's a lot of different variety of games and activities you can take part in. So you're immediately, as soon as you put this headset on, you're immediately taken out of your real environment and taken to a virtual environment. It could be anywhere. It could be anywhere on Earth or out in space, or a three-dimensional world that's imagined somehow, very surrealistic. So within this virtual reality, it's really is a 3D experience. It's three-dimensional. And if you're not sure what that means, it means basically you perceive what you're looking at through this headset the same as you would your physical environment around you. So as opposed to a TV set or your cell phone, something like that, that screen is just flat and you're just looking at a two-dimensional image. So if I'm looking at my phone, all I'm seeing is this flat image. And for one thing, it's just a small area. Even a big screen TV is a relatively small area compared to what you see with your VR headsets. So I think gaming's an obvious thing for a lot of people. That's the thing you see online a lot. But I think for us older folks, I think some of the things that are really beneficial are things like the exercise programs. There's activities like yoga and dancing and some sports experiences. They're a great way to increase your physical activity and really enjoy yourself and feel like you're getting out of the house a little bit, especially in the wintertime. A lot of these are rhythm-based games, so I'll cover some of those a little bit later, but those are fun. They're more of like not quite dancing, but it is movements according to a certain beat, and that's a lot of fun. There are chat areas where you can chat with other people. You turn into basically an icon or a cartoon character that you will appear to other people, and you can go to different rooms and things and just talk about stuff. So I will caution you that a lot of these rooms are not moderated, so you might be exposed to something that's inappropriate as far as language or some inappropriate conversations. But a lot of times, most people, I think, will be pretty civilized, and depending on the group you find, should work out well and can be fun. And a lot of people actually meet online friends that way, not to be weird or anything, but if you find a group of people that you enjoy talking to, you can definitely, meet up again online. You don't have to meet in person or anything. And that's something that a lot of people like doing as well. So one of the more unusual activities or experiences you can have with these headsets is a musical or a performance of some sort. It's a fun thing to see. So concerts and musical acts, they can be very engaging in your face. It's basically it's better than the front row. You can be on the stage with them, and it's just an incredible experience. You wouldn't necessarily have to be on stage. This depends on how they videoed or recorded the performance. So like concerts are, like I said, are a lot of fun. There's dance floor performances. So if you like dance, you could see ballet type things or more esoteric type dancing. You might be in the middle of a room with performers, and that could be a band or it could be some sort of a club or something with people dancing. That's a cool thing to experience. So some of the things available to do would be to tour famous and exotic places. So I've been to Paris and I've been to the pyramids of Egypt, the rock buildings of Petra and Jordan, just all over the place. So that's been a lot of fun. So it depends on how they videotape. I call it videotaping. I'm not sure what the process is called, but it is three-dimensional, and you can look around. If you're standing underneath the Eiffel Tower, you can look up into the tower, and you can look all around the legs, and maybe if the videographer has moved around, you'll be moving around with them. So that's a pretty cool experience. There's movies available as well, and so most of those are short films that are specifically focused on the three-dimensional concept of it, so you can really get a feel for something that's maybe eerie. There was a love story I saw, which was a lot of fun. It was in Paris. It was in French, but they had subtitles. It was kind of an interesting 20-minute at the most. I think it was 15 to 20 minutes, and it was just kind of an entertaining short story. So the things about these headsets is they're very immersive. You can look in all directions. So like when you're looking around the room, you see your couch and your TV and your spouse and everything. But when you put these things around you, like I said before, you can suddenly be at the bottom of the sea or floating in space, really anywhere that the developer wants to take you. And so the experience is really different from a 3D movie. So if you think about Avatar, where you see the dimensions, it's a 3D, but you only see it on the screen. With the headset, there's no edges of the screen. You are actually in the environment. So that was a lot of the fun things about the VR headset, but you need to consider too why you may not want to try a headset. Start off primarily is going to be your medical and health concerns. I think seizures, there's going to be flashing lights, rapid images, a lot of movement and things. Some people will be very susceptible to getting a seizure from something that experience. It's very visual and it's very in your face, so that could be a problem for some people. One big item that comes up is motion sickness. So depending on the content, if not most people, will experience motion sickness at some point. And it's something like a concert or something probably won't be an issue because you're generally sitting still looking at the show. But some movies and games with a lot of movement, like flying through space or if you're on a roller coaster, can be really disoriented. Even some of the walking type activities can cause motion sickness. So when I say motion sickness, can really be debilitating. I've gotten it a few times, and it's not like if you're on a boat and you're feeling kind of motion sickness, and then you get off the shore and it settles down pretty quick. With these headsets, as soon as you feel that you're getting motion sickness, you really need to stop right away because it can go on for several hours if it's bad enough. So that is a watch out. I think that's becoming more recognized as a real problem with the headsets. So the content developers are beginning to pay more attention to it, and there's actually settings they're starting to put into the game or activities that kind of settle some things down, so you're not moving around in a way that would cause you to get that motion sickness. One area is the stability. So if you're standing up with this headset, sometimes you might lose sense of reality, obviously, but you might have a loss of balance. And so, like I said, if you're standing up, that could be a real issue. So when you're starting, you probably always want to start using something like this while you're sitting down until you get used to the whole experience. Another watch out why you may not want to use it is because you lose a sense of your surroundings because you don't have contact with the room or the people in your area anymore. One time I was playing, it was called The Office or something like that with the grandkids. And so we were walking through the office and it was kind of a cartoonish setting. And I saw a chair and I just was thinking, for some reason, I thought, I'm going to sit down for a second. And I actually started to reach over for the chair and I realized, oh my gosh, there's not a chair there. And I almost sat down in it. So there's kind of things like that you need to be aware of that you can kind of misjudge or fools you about what the environment's like. On the other side, it might be you're moving your hands around in open space and you're playing a game and You move around and all of a sudden, whack, you hit the coffee table, or whack, you hit your spouse. So speaking of which, there is a chance of injuries. So you always want to be aware of yourself and others. You can, like I said, injure other people or yourself. You can break or knock over objects in the room. It's important to have appropriate areas to work with if you're playing with anything with movement, which is going to be, you're going to have some movement with most of these things. So one watch out is going to be a PC connectivity issue. On some of these headsets, there's a PC would be required with the headset to set it up. And on this one I was just showing you, this older Samsung unit, this one did require a tether all the time. So you always had this cable plugged into the computer. And that's something that, like I said, can be a distraction or annoying. A lot of these, most of them will need a hookup on some level at some point, but like with the Oculus, for example, you don't need to have it hooked up to a computer all the time, which is nice. So it's a newer technology, so keep this in mind. So you might want to wait. You might think in terms of the lines of how PCs were like in the early 90s. You're going to expect a lot of improvements and pricing coming down, over the next few years. So today's models, they may become obsolete sooner than you would expect. One of the challenges to consider before you get into this is eyeglasses can be very challenging. So two things. One is when you put your glasses in the headset, assuming they fit, the focal length of the Oculus, at least on this one, the Oculus Quest 2, is about 1.3 meters, or it's a little bit over 4 feet. So basically, if you need glasses to see clearly at, we'll say, 4 feet, you're going to need glasses to see clearly on the headset. So that's something to think about. So you can wear glasses with the headset, and I've done that. Especially if you have several pairs of glasses, you might have to look around the house and see if you have one that's the right prescription and will actually fit into the headset. And we'll look at that later on here. That does work, but they do fog up a little bit. I think that's a little more of a hassle with wearing glasses in there. There are prescription lenses that are available, and that's actually what I'm using. I don't know if I can show that here or not, but they've actually snapped in. I'll pull them out later so you can see how that works. But those are just, see how it turns on? It turns on when you pick up the unit. But it is an added expense, but it does make things a world of difference. So when I put this on without my glasses, I see super clear, and I don't have any issues with it fogging up or anything like that. I have progressive lenses, so depending on where you're looking through the lens, that could throw off your focus as well. And that's why it's nice to have a dedicated lens with these things. So these things can get expensive. Price is something, cost associated with them is something you need to consider as well, especially when you consider the relative amount of time you spend with it. Some of the peripheral items like cables, headset batteries, etc., new glasses with snap-in lenses or whatever, they can all be additional unexpected expenses. So it could become an expensive paperweight if you lose interest in it down the road. So just keep that in mind. And finally, one thing to maybe not you to get one or maybe to think about holding off is that creative content is still developing. There might be a very limited selection of the things that you enjoy in particular. So you might want to wait until there's more content available. But then again, I'd suggest getting online, looking at YouTube, seeing what's out there. More and more stuff's becoming available. So over time, if you like a certain niche of material, that'll expand over time. All right, now that we've gone through all that, let's talk about the actual parts and some of the requirements of these headsets. First, we'll talk about the headset itself. This is the headset. This is the one for the Meta Quest. Okay, all right. And here's the one for the Samsung unit. They do look slightly different. Obviously, the headphones are obviously different. Okay, but the headset basically has. It's the goggle part that you look through. There's two little lenses, not little, but there's two lenses inside there. Okay, looks like eyeballs staring back at you, and you can adjust this the length between the distance between the lenses to kind of help fit your. They call it the pupil distance or inner pupil distance, and that's adjustable on this. Same thing with this other headset. So it's pretty common across these headsets. Okay, so it's got the two lenses. There's two screens in there. All right, so that's what makes these so much different than your cell phone cardboard headsets, among other things. So the goggle is surrounded by either a silicone or foam or a rubber surround here, okay, and that's kind of keeps it secure to your face and helps block out the light. This one's a little bit different on the Samsung unit. It does have the foam, all right, but it's actually got some foam on the top here. All right, so that's part of the thing that holds it to your head, which is a little bit different the way it sits on your face. There's a head strap, okay. that goes across the top on this particular unit. So it sits on top of your head. That's different on this unit where you don't have a head strap. Basically, you've got this forehead thing. I don't know what you'd call it, but it's there. And that's part of the thing that holds it to your head. These both have speakers or headphones built in. This has speakers in it. I'm not 100% certain where they are, but somehow the sound comes out of this while you're wearing, and it's a very very spatial sound with these headsets. Now on this other one, the headphones are actually a different integral part of the unit like that, all right? Okay, so they're just a little bit different. This does have a port. You could plug in some headsets or earbuds or whatever you feel like putting on. I don't know how a headset would work on this too well, but I think earbuds would probably work if you have some kind of transmitter, all right? These will all generally have some kind of a start button or different buttons and places to control things. This has a start button over here. It has a volume control on the bottom of the headset, so you can adjust that fairly simple when you have it on, all right? And they're easy to feel while you've got it on your face. It's got a USB-C charging port, okay? And there may be on some of these down the road, you may see like a micro SD card, something like that. This set's a little different, the Samsung, because this is the one that tethers to the PC. So basically when you plug it in, it turns on and you don't have to turn it on or off. It does have the volume controls on the bottom. I don't know if you can see that or not. Let's get that closer so you can see that maybe. Yeah, there they are. Okay, might be out of focus. This one has a rechargeable battery built inside. Okay, so you never change the battery, but there are external batteries you can buy that plug into the USB charging port. So there's some that goes on the actual headset, which is what I bought early on. Okay, that was part of a special package, and so this is part of the headset that you had to buy extra for the Quest. I didn't like it. It weighs a little bit, so we won't talk about that necessarily too much, but that's other ways to plug in your headset as far as power is concerned. This one's self-powered. Well, it's powered through your PC and the tether, okay? There's cameras built into these. So when you first put them on, a lot of times I call it a pass-through mode, where you put them on and you'll actually be able to look around, actually see the room you're in. And so there's a camera here, there. Let's see if you can see that very good or not. Okay, and then two more on the bottom, all right? And it's in black and white, but it does a pretty good job. This has two lenses on the Samsung unit. If you can see this, with being black, it's kind of hard to pick some of that up, but there's one, and there's the other, shining in the light, all right? Okay, and again, that's going to give you it's just a black and white image. It's not the greatest resolution. You couldn't read what's on the screen, for example, when you look with those. That's one thing I've noticed. So let's put these aside for a minute, and let's move on to the controllers. So whenever you use these headsets, generally you will have to have something on your hands to help the headset know what you're doing or what you're trying to do. They're right and left hand specific. Okay, this is the one for the Quest, is the white one, all right? Now, I noticed on these, they make it as difficult as possible to figure out which one's left and right, especially if you're in a dark room or something, but that really faint L there, so they've got a off-white sticker with a off-white little bitty L on the handle of this thing, of the off-white controller, and the same thing with this, it's got the little R, so that gets really rough to read. So if you noticed, I put a big R and L on these things so I can pick them up real easy without trying to figure out which one's which. I don't use it enough where it's like, oh, these fit in this hand right away. I generally have to think about it before I do that. So on this one, we'll go ahead and get the controls on this. These both have a joystick type thing for your thumb. They have a couple of buttons, okay? And the buttons are different for each side depending on what you're doing. Same thing with the thumbs, with these thumb sticks. Each side will be different depending on the game or the activity. This also has, on the right-hand side, has a way to get back to the main menu of Quest. This has some other functions. It has some different functionalities. And in general, these will have triggers. You'll have one for your index finger. And so like that would generally be for like shooting or grabbing or something like that, doing a function. You've got grab, I call them grab buttons on the side. Okay, that's the same thing. They kind of do different things depending on what the game or activity is about. All right, so these are similar. These are hard to tell apart too. I'm not familiar with these. But there's a left and a right, and to make it difficult again for you to figure out which one's which, it's a jet black controller, and they've got this R. I don't know if I can get that to shine up or not. I guess you can right there a little bit. They got the R just kind of stamped in there, and the same thing with the L over here for the left one. And I don't know why they make that so difficult. So anyway, so this one's a little different. It does have the thumb controllers, okay, the thumbsticks. Instead of the A and B buttons, or the two buttons on each, it's got like a pad, okay, that you punch around. All right, okay. It has extra buttons as well, so they're very similar in function. There's an extra button on these as well, so depending on what you're doing, these controllers will have different functions for those buttons. Just like the other Quest set, the Samsung set has the trigger on the front. Let me see if I can show you that. It's a little different. They feel a bit different and are set up a little different, but okay, that's the trigger. And then the grab button, I call it, is on the side here, if you can see that or not. Okay, so they're, as far as how they feel about the same once you get used to how they work and everything. I won't say one's better than the other, they're just similar. Okay, the controllers take batteries, and they're generally in the handset. I guess they're always in the handset. You can use rechargeables as well. I don't know if any of these come with pre-installed, like a charging unit. Okay, this one just takes one battery. So they don't use much juice. I've had these in here for months on the one I bought on the Quest, and it just seems to last forever. Of course, I don't use it as much as maybe a lot of people might. So you might need also, we'll show some screenshots of this, some Wi-Fi connection or computer software. So you'll most likely need some kind of connection on something. So that will allow the unit to do things like update firmware, download content, and interact with others, depending on what's required for the activity you're doing. One unusual thing about these VR technology is when you get into it, they have what's called boundaries, or virtual boundaries. That's kind of an unusual aspect of the virtual reality system. So you need to define what kind of area you'll be using it in. So if you're sitting, for example, you'll most likely use what's called a stationary boundary, and that'll be like a big circle around you, all right, around your body or wherever you're sitting. If you're going to be standing up, you could use a circle boundary as well. But a lot of those activities you'll be moving, so you'll probably want to have more area to move around, whether you're just some dancing games or some others that you might take a little bit of a step here and there. That's a different kind of boundary, and you can actually define what that boundary is using the controller. You just lay it out it's like a laser beam type thing, and you draw out the surrounding, where it's clear to do your activity. And so that brings up a point too when you're playing these things. Make sure the area, whether it's sitting down or standing up, make sure that you've got plenty of room to wave your arms or whatever you happen to be doing. So in some of these, you might need the wired PC connection. I think I've mentioned that several times with the Samsung unit. Let me pull it up here. Get my mess up here. But the Samsung unit would take HDMI and a USB 3 connection. What you'll notice here is we've actually added a short tether, so we're not actually plugging and unplugging from the HDMI plug on the cable that's connected to the headset, because you can't change that out. So the cable is actually hardwired into the headset. So you want to take care of your connections on these. So that's something to consider if you're always plugging in and unplugging something from a computer or from some other thing. You'll definitely want to make sure that you take care of that connection. And so we figured out the best way to do that one way to do that was to basically just put this, we have it taped on there, but just a short HDMI extension, okay? So that way if this gets messed up, you don't have to worry about replacing a cable or anything. USBs are pretty robust, so we didn't worry about that one, okay? If you're using the Quest system and it's tethered, you'll actually have a USB cable plugged in right there. Again, that's a little bit limiting as far as how much you can move around or how far away you can get from your computer. So that's just something else to consider while you're using these. You do get better graphics, and a lot of times that's the only way you might be able to get a substantial amount of more information or more games and things into your headset. So you can do some of this wirelessly as well. It just may not be the quality of signal as you would get with a wired connection as you can imagine. Okay, so how do you get started with these things? So I would recommend finding someone who already has a headset and work with that person and find out what the pros and cons and watch outs about the particular headset that they're using. If someone does have it, I would probably plan on sitting down for the first time. For most seniors, pretty much for anybody for that matter, but I think seniors especially, you probably want to be sitting just to get a feel for what things look like once you put that headset on. There's lots of tutorials and demos on these things where you can get a good idea about how they work, what the different buttons do and things. You don't have to kind of guess where things are. So those demos are very helpful as far as helping you, figure out what you need to push and how you look around and how you move from left to right, that sort of thing. So each one might be a little bit different, but it's pretty intuitive once you get into it. Now, one thing that does take a while is to figure out what kind of VR experience works for you or doesn't work for you. Some things might be a little overwhelming or disoriented or cause severe motion sickness, right as soon as you put it on. So just to maybe just mention that some people just won't be able to use a VR system. But once you put in something that's stable, don't start with a roller coaster, don't start with space flying or anything like that. Try to start with something where you're in a room, you're just standing there, maybe in a virtual room that's more of a cartoon type situation. Those are great things to start. So you're not a lot of movement, you're not being rocked around, and it's easy to kind of get your bearings and figure out how to use these things without getting overwhelmed or getting motion sickness. Now, one thing that's nice is a lot of these activities you can always sit. You don't have to stand if you don't want to, and that's something I found is useful because a lot of games I play, I found, hey, I can sit. I don't have to stand all the time. Sometimes standing gets, depending on how long you play, you can get too hot, you can get disoriented, you get, whatever the case may be. But if you need to sit down, that's something that is a good idea to start with that. I found too, if you have air movement on you, that helps because you've got this thing on your face. If you have air movement, it helps cool you down. That can be a problem, and I think that does contribute to motion sickness. So that's something to think about. So when you put these on, or get ready to put on a headset, the first thing I generally do is going to be put on my controllers, okay? And first thing I do is figure out which one's left and which one's right. So that's right, this one's left. And I go ahead and put them on my wrist, and I'll tighten them down. They don't have to be like super tight. You just want them to be reasonably tight, okay, like that. And then I'm going to take my glasses off because it's easier to demonstrate. But what I usually do would be so if the head strap can come down or up, usually it can go either way, but if you carefully push it up a little bit, you might have to expand your back piece here. But I generally put it up on my eyes first, okay, and then I bring it down and tighten it up, all right? Now from here, I can see the room right now, but the way this is set up, it's not super clear. I can't, for example, my teleprompter, I can't read that, but I see everything in the room. It's in black and white. I've got something right here, so I can grab that pretty much without a problem. Here's my teleprompter controller, and here's my glasses. So the reason I'm saying that is that you can still see things. They're blurry and a little odd looking, but you can see through these as soon as you put them on. At that point, you're going to be presented with some menus. So the first thing on mine is it starts about the boundary. So there's a boundary, actually I usually play out on the other side of where I'm speaking from, but there's a predefined boundary that I used a while back. It's still there. If I change rooms, it's magical and can pick up the boundaries in the other room. So I haven't figured out how it knows that, but it does. So that's basically how you put the thing on. If you need to change the volumes, I can feel around. So here's my volume control down here. If I need to turn it on or off, if I'd like to reset it, I can feel around. I feel my button there, okay? So each headset might be a little different, but that's kind of how that works. Okay, and to take it off, I generally kind of reverse the process. So I'll loosen that head strap and then take it off like that. So I don't take it off like that. And I can't exactly say why I don't, but when I wear glasses, that just doesn't work. So by wearing glasses, I can, if the glasses fit and the frames fit in the frame here, which these do not, that's the way I would put that on anyway. So I just make it a habit of putting the headset on and taking it off the same way. So in general, the strap should be above your ears, okay? If you have glasses or hearing aids. I've got both, so you might need to be careful with that, like how you put that on and where they're touching. You wouldn't want those like to be squishing your hearing aids, or if you have a cochlear implant, that might be something to consider as well. So if you have any medical conditions or anything going on, that injuries or whatever, you just may have to consider that as well. So these generally, what's kind of cool is as soon as you pick them up and put them on, they'll turn on. I think I've mentioned that before. It'll then start searching for your controllers, and so those will light up in your vision here within your headset. So that's all pretty automatic, and there'll be menus that come up at that point. So let's go back to some of my personal experiences that I've had since I've owned this unit. So using it as a standalone unit, that's the easiest way to use it overall. There's lots of content available. The Meta, who's the owner of this, it used to be Oculus Quest, but it's Meta Quest 2 is what this one is. There's lots of material out there, and with their software package you can get on. It's got an application to go to, and that's got plenty of things you can download. You can download things through the headset itself. So whether it's Wi-Fi or through the tether, there's lots of content available. So I'm surprised at how much actually shows up just with the Wi-Fi part. So that's good. From a visual perspective, I think the graphics within this unit are really good. If you have some more games that are more PC or GPU or CPU intensive, those will work better if you run them on the PC. Steam's a good example, which is that application that has all these games that you can buy, and actually Steam works pretty good. So if you're playing a game like Half-Life Alyx, for example, it's a very robust game, a lot of content, a lot of incredible visuals. You're definitely in a different world in that game, but that definitely is something that you really need to be tethered to get the most benefit out of it. So to buy these games and these experiences, if they're not free, then I always read a lot of reviews and look for sales. So one thing you can do on some of these sites, if you're looking at buying, whether it's with the Meta site or with Steam or with any of these other sites, is you can put things on a wish list and just wait for them to go on sale. So that's a great way to save on money, because some of these games and these activities are not very good at all. So you can spend a lot of money and be very disappointed in how much you're spending versus how much enjoyment you get out of it. So I've learned that from experience. Like I said, not everything's going to be excellent, so just keep that in mind. So a lot of the streaming services offer VR content, and there's VR 360 and there's VR 180, so they're kind of different things. So 360 is the one where you can see 360 degrees around you, and 180 is going to be more something like you're sitting in a concert and you're watching the show from your seat or from wherever the camera is sitting. Then when you look around, you actually might see it is in 3D, but it's kind of like a back seats behind you and maybe a mezzanine or something, or sometimes it's just blank. So it just depends on what the provider is doing. So as I was saying before, there's lots of things to experience and places to go. You can sit down in a recliner and walk up Kilimanjaro in Africa. You can, take a drone flight over some forest, or go into the tropics, or, whatever you want to do. But so much of that's free, and it's just fun just to spend even, 15 minutes or a half hour it's like you get out and do something without having to leave the house, which is kind of nice if you're, if you kind of have some mobility issues and you just need to, because you really feel like you're out in the open. So it's very unique in that nature. So that's something that until you experience it, I can't really explain it that well. So there are aftermarket head straps and face cushions and things like that are probably worth the investment. It's probably worth just using what they give you to get started. But then you can also buy aftermarket. This is the aftermarket head strap here. I've been real happy with this. It's very comfortable. The original Quest 2 headset kind of looks something like this, the black part back here. A little bit different. It's got the strap on top too. This one has the battery pack. And that's one of the things when you're looking at buying these things is what's worth the money, what's maybe not worth the money. I'd say this battery pack, for me at least, was not worth the money. It puts a little extra weight on the back of your head, and it seemed like it was actually giving me a neck ache when I was using it. And I was a little worried that this headset was giving me the neck ache, but when I actually switched to this other head strap, I found it actually did make a difference when it was more comfortable, but there was just enough weight difference there where I don't know what that weighs, but just enough weight difference where it was putting a little extra strain on my neck. So keep that in mind, that maybe don't pay extra for some things unless you really think you need them. So I'd say the extra $150 that this cost me, because it was the headset, this battery thing, and then a case. The case isn't too bad if you're going to travel with this thing. It all goes inside there nice and neat. It's kind of wonky, but the case is okay. But again, I wouldn't have spent the $150 extra in a set. It was one of those bundled sets. It was through Sam's Club, and I thought it was a great deal, which it was. I guess it was worth it for what it was. And plus, it seemed to kind of affect the PC connectivity. You're supposed to be able to plug into that headset or to that head strap, and it connect to the Quest to do the PC connectivity, but for some reason it was giving me some issues, so I just kind of get rid of that totally. So I was mentioning before about glasses, so my glasses did work, the ones I had, but it was a progressive, so as I moved my head around in the 3D environment, it would sometimes get out of focus. So I went ahead and just because it was nice just to be able to take my glasses off and put this headset on without worrying about glasses, that's why I went ahead and spent the money to get the lenses in here, as I showed before. So just to reiterate, these things are, the focus is at about 4 feet 3 inches. Again, if you want to get prescription lenses for this, which I did, that would be the distance you would have your eye doctor do the exam for, or add that extra step in the exam, make sure you get that. So as far as the lenses are concerned, there's several providers online. Let you kind of get online and see what works for you. There's some that work with a magnet, which is kind of cool. You have a frame in there, and then as you change out the glasses or change out the lenses, they pop out off real easy because they're just magnetically attached. And so if you're playing with people that don't have glasses or don't need glasses, it might make it a little bit easier as well. Or if you have other people that have a different prescription, you could all share the headset and all bring your own little lenses to the party and change the lenses as you go through, which I guess could be a real thing. So let's go through some games that I have played. Like I said, I didn't want to make a lot of recommendations about these things, but I'll give you some experiences I've had with some of the different games and activities. I think on the Quest and probably a lot of these systems, my strap's coming off, and my eye cushion's coming off here. Beat Saber is excellent to get a feel for VR. I don't know if you can play that sitting down. You might be able to play it with an arm without chairs, for example. I think you probably could. I haven't tried that, but that's one where you're basically standing still and you're swinging your swords, basically, these sabers, in rhythm as these boxes come towards you, and you hit the boxes as they come in. So there's a free demo on that. That's a good one to get started on. One that's a little more exercise oriented, I thought, was Synth Rider, like a synthesizer, Synth Rider. So that one was similar, but he had like globes on your hand, and you follow the rhythm. And again, you're kind of pushing boxes and following beams and stuff. But this has a little bit more physical movement in it, I thought, but not too bad. So I thought that was a good low impact to kind of get you worked up a little bit more, a little more heartbeat going. Most of these games that you're going to see are going to be more contemporary dance style music or contemporary style dance music, very beat driven, which would kind of make sense because that's the idea, is you're doing something according to a beat. But there's a lot of variety up there. I was playing a dance game, and they had some Earth, Wind, and Fire stuff on there, so it was kind of like they did have some more, I'll call them a little bit older pieces of music on there that you could dance to, and that was pretty cool too. So Super Hot, that's a big one, especially for gamers, young gamers. So that's one that, again, there's a free demo on that on the Quest as well. That's a good PC type game. It's a shooter, if you like that sort of thing. Definitely will get you moving, get you turning around and going all kinds of movements and everything. So that can get really strenuous. So, and plus it can get you pretty frustrated too. But that's not a bad something just to experience. Now there's other games that I've tried and I've really enjoyed was Down the Rabbit Hole. That's a sit-down puzzle game, and it's based on Alice in Wonderland. It's got really cute characters and great voice acting. The mechanics of moving around they're pretty easy to get used to. And the downside, for me at least, is sometimes the puzzles get kind of difficult. So what you can do is, if you like to start a game but the puzzles are frustrating, I either have my phone or my tablet nearby, and I'll just keep it open to a walkthrough, which is where they show you how to get through the game. And if there's a puzzle you can't get, go to that part of the walkthrough, and they'll show you how to get through the frustrating puzzles. I know it's lazy, but it's less frustrating for me. As far as like a bad game that I played, just to give you a heads up, is a game called Lost Ember. It's a sit-down game, and it looked good, like you're walking around. But the way the character and the camera motion was in the game, I really got motion sickness in about 10 minutes, and it was one of those bad motion sicknesses. Felt very ill for about an hour afterwards. I played it on the PC without VR, and it's an okay game, but that's one of those things where it's like, okay, you can play something on the PC, but it doesn't necessarily translate to a virtual reality setting. So just keep that in mind, that some things will be both PC and VR, whatever the experience is. You just need to make sure that it works on the VR version if you're going to do that. So the bottom line on this thing is I bought it as I'm approaching retirement, and I'm sure a lot of you have already reached retirement or beyond, and you sit around at home all day and everything. This is really something I think I'm looking forward to doing this more and more as I learn more with it, and get off my butt, especially in the winter months. Do some of the exercises. I'm still exploring some of the activities you can do on it, and as I'm finding more and more things to do, I find that it can get very invigorating, and depending on how mobile you want to be or how mobile you can't be, you can pick the activities that you want. So that's basically it. If you have any questions or suggestions, if you think I missed something you want to know more about, just please put it in the comments section below. If you liked this video, maybe learned a little bit, please give me a thumbs up. Also, maybe consider subscribing. That really helps my channel quite a bit. And I'd like to thank you very much for watching.